From insane 40-yard dashes to underdogs setting world records, we've seen our fair share of wild moments in college football. So here are the craziest moments from the NFL Combine. And we're starting strong with the OG college star Mike Mamula. By the 1990s, college athletes who were trying to break into the pros started focusing more on the NFL Combine. The competition has always made waves since it puts athletes to the test on abilities that have little to do with playing football. Over the years, we've seen participants place much more value on the drills than they used to. But when Mamula entered the scene in 1995, he quickly solidified his spot as the iconic Combine warrior. He completely changed the event around and gave the NFL Combine some highlight-worthy performances. The dynamic edge rusher at Boston College entered the NFL with knowledge of both 3-4 outside linebackers and 4-3 defensive ends. But when he came to Indianapolis for the Combine, you'll be surprised to know that fans were predicting he'd be selected in the second or third round. Of course, he proved all his critics wrong that year. Mamula impressed the scouts with its 4.58 in the 40, a vertical leap of 38.5 inches, and 28 repetitions of 225 pounds in the bench press after months of training, which is insane considering he wasn't even the fan favorite going into the event. Mamula had an excellent start to his career after the Philadelphia Eagles selected him 7th overall in the 1995 NFL Draft. And while his career was cut short due to an injury, he set a very high benchmark for all incoming athletes. But even that didn't scare off Vernon Davis when he joined Combine in 2006. NFL teams have recently become fixated on having an athletic tight end, but that wasn't the case 10 years ago. Many didn't consider the position to be as dynamic as it is now in the game. That's exactly why Vernon Davis was able to take the football world by storm. After all, they hadn't seen a player as dynamic as him in a while. Davis completely dominated the scene at NFL Combine, and the Maryland star, who had been recruited as a wide receiver but was switched to tight end as a sophomore, progressively improved in that position to become one of the best in the nation despite the Terrapins' 2 seasons of sub-500 play. He showed his strength and agility in Indianapolis, working his way into the top 10 draft spot. But it's his performance at the 40-yard dash that made headlines. He finished it in an absurd 4.38 seconds, bench pressed 225 pounds for 33 repetitions, and had a 42-inch vertical jump. At this point, he might as well try out for professional basketball as well. Davis was chosen by the San Francisco 49ers as the 6th overall pick in the 2006 NFL Draft. And while the competition was tough that year, I still think he should have been picked higher. But he wasn't the only one setting records, and Chris Johnson quite literally gave Davis a run for his money just 2 years later. The average yet reliable running back prospect finished his senior season at East Carolina with 20 touchdowns and nearly 3,000 all-purpose yards, all before coming to Indy. So you can see why fans weren't that impressed with his stats, especially since there were 23 other players with better stats than his 1,423 rushing yards during his final year at ECU. But only a few people in history were able to run the 40 as quickly as Johnson. The Pirates' back sprang out of his stance, his dreadlocks flapping behind him with each leg kick, as scouts watched him make his legendary dash. And when the stopwatch was finally paused, the time read 4.24, and his professional football career was pretty much guaranteed. But to sweeten the deal for all potential coaches, Johnson did a gorgeous 10-foot 10-inch broad jump and 35-inch vertical leap to qualify for the first round. He was selected as the highest drafted Pirate in school history when Tennessee selected him with the 24th overall pick in the 2008 NFL Draft. This tied him with former ECU linebacker Robert Jones, which is a brilliant way to start your career in the limelight. But while we are on the topic of underdogs performing extremely well under pressure, I have to talk about J.J. Watt's versatile skills, which bumped him into the first round. J.J. was a prep player who was recruited more than a tight end and then a defensive end coming out of high school. He left Mount Pleasant to walk on as a defensive lineman at Wisconsin after receiving a scholarship to play at Central Michigan. And just 3 years later, after being named to the first team of All-American and taking home the Lott Trophy, he was more or less ignored going into the 2011 NFL Combine. But Watt channeled his inner and put on the show of a lifetime. He landed in 4th place overall in the bench press with 34 reps, even though he fell short of Pea's record-breaking total. His vertical jump of 37 inches and a broad jump of 10 feet both placed him 4th among defensive front 7 players. Watt was without a doubt the surprise of that year's Combine, despite turning in a poor 40-yard speed of 4.84. Houston ended up choosing him as the 11th overall, and they didn't regret their decision as he went on to become a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. But they can't say the same about their next picks though, because in 2013, DeAndre Hopkins and Mark Harrison found themselves in hot waters. While the majority of the moments on this list are crazy because of the athletes' insane performance tests, this moment is on here because Hopkins and Harrison had a hotel party, and well, they went crazy. Just before draft night, news broke out that a player's room in Indianapolis Crowne Plaza got completely wrecked. The bathroom was covered in bodily fluids, and the room was covered in trash and half-eaten food. And we quickly found out that the culprits behind it all were the Clemson wideout and Rutgers receiver. They knew how to throw pre-game parties. It's a shame that their careers never lived up to the hype though. Hopkins was selected by Houston in the first round of the 2013 NFL Draft, while Harrison, on the other hand, was undrafted before retiring from football. The player who should have thrown a party as wild as this was Byron Jones with his world record broad jump. The NFL Combine is famous for having exclusive events that aren't directly related to football. But the broad jump is an exception, which has been a contrasting combine since it was started. It's the perfect test of a football player's lower body strength and explosiveness. But cornerback Byron Jones wasn't planning on participating in any physical activities at the 2015 NFL Combine. In fact, by the time the event rolled around, he was still healing from shoulder surgery. It was only after an intense training schedule that he could participate in the leaping workouts. But when he did participate, he shattered a world record that had stood for over 50 years. His 12-foot 3-inch leap made him one of the few football players to hold an athletic record. Not only that, but he also came in just a half-inch short of breaking the record for the vertical leap. Jones's insane display helped him in moving up to the first round of the 2015 NFL Draft, as Dallas chose him with the 27th overall pick. And to think he did it all while not being in full health. Well, there you have it. These were the craziest moments from the NFL Combine.